the age-old debate, starch-based diet versus fruit-based. The starch, it's much easier. Agriculture, we can store grains over the winter. You don't have to think about it, just you boil it, but you have to cook your food. Oh my God, you're not a raw food hippie. Fruits, harder. Oh shit. You could have warned me someone was coming. You didn't. Fruit-based diets, much harder. You have to gather all these fruits. They don't last long. The ripeness issue. Today we talk, what's the superior diet for most people? Starch, fruit. So I've done both diets. They both have their merits. If you're trying to decide like which path to take, just know that you can do both, and you can do one in a certain season. Fruits in the summer, it's like, okay, then you transition more to starch-based in the winter time, and then, like it makes sense on paper, and you can always do like fruit for breakfast, starch for lunch, starch for dinner, or fruit, starch, fruit. No, don't do that one. So here's the things I've noticed. On a fruit-based diet, there's a lot of shopping. It's a lot of heavy, water-rich fruit that you have to bring home. It's annoying. But starch-based has their annoyances. Now that I'm doing more quinoa and rice and millet, you have to soak these things overnight, and then you have to cook it, and you have to plan that cooking. So like I cooked some Saba bananas this morning with some green peas. There's a breakfast of heroes. So I made that, and then I knew I was gonna come out here for a couple hours making videos, so I soaked wild rice the night before, and now that meal is cooking in the Instapot on a delayed timer. So when I get home, I can have that. It's a lot more planning, whereas fruit, you can kind of just eat your fruit, maybe bring some with you. The one thing I like about starch is it's just consistently tasting bland and not as good as fruit, but it's always the same pretty much. Like you get potatoes, you know what you're gonna get. You don't have to worry like, oh, I just bought these organic peaches that were $30 and they all suck, they're mushy. No. Fruit can go wrong fast, and it either doesn't taste good from the scratch or it ripens too fast, and it's this whole perpetual cycle you have to get used to of buying food when it's unripe and then wait for it to ripen. But there's a certain energy that fruit will give you that makes it worth the struggle of gathering it into your home. It's just a higher vibe being. It's up. Fruit, like there's fruit right here. Unfortunately, those are poisonous berries, and I'm not gonna eat them on camera. They're bitter as hell. They're not good. They've fooled me before. That is not a Saskatoon berry. You look similar, but you're a dickhead. So it's like high vibe fruits, man. I tell you, like you eat half a watermelon, and if it doesn't crash your blood sugar to all hell, you feel pretty high vibe, and you're peeing a lot. That's one downside. You pee way more on the fruits. Oh God, they're both like so good and bad. Starch is so comforting and satisfying. You eat a nice big meal of just like quinoa with Brussels sprouts and nori. That's a very simple 3-ingredient meal that I love. A little oregano in there, one pot meal. Kind of obliterates the Brussels sprouts. I should cook those separately, but go to hell. So like that, I'm just sitting down watching some YouTube. It's like, oh, this is heaven. Whereas fruit, it's not gonna comfort you on a bad day, but it will fuel your terrible emotions and you'll feel them deeper. I feel like the starch is a bit of a numbness, but like, I think most of us kind of need that in today's spiky world. But if we're talking like raw versus cooked, and if you were trying the grains raw, they're not good. Sprouted quinoa, like gross. Sprouted buckwheat, disgusting. So like you could argue, oh, since you have to cook it, that's not meant for humans. I don't believe it. I don't see the difference. I've cooked foods and it's been great. And like, that's what we do as humans. Like we learned how to boil things and break it down. It's just heat, it's fine. We lived. Of course, there's a certain magic that gets destroyed when you cook something. The enzymes are gone, some vitamins are destroyed, others are altered, some are increased, but do you need that? Lycopene from tomatoes, it's like, okay, like you have a point, but they're very different foods. Like you might think, oh, they both just all break down to sugar. It doesn't matter, grains, beans, potatoes, fruits, it's all sugar in the end. It's like, no, these behave very differently in the body. Like a watermelon, it's sweet, it's fructose, it's high vibe, it's hydrating. And then the grains, it's it turns into carbohydrates, but it also has way higher protein. You can eat just grain meals and build muscle. You'll have more strength than if you did on the fruits. Like watermelons are not 8% protein. Who's lying to us? That's with all the seeds. There's no way. Like most fruits are 4 to 5% max. And then there's a couple that seem higher. It's because of the seeds. You morons, like cantaloupes. Oh, it's so high. Take the seeds out next time you measure it. 4%. Oh, look at that. Starch is also much cheaper per calorie. It's not even close. Like that's the cheapest diet you can do. And you can still do like organic, high vibe starch. The quinoa's from local here. This is quinoa, I think. Totally grows in Canada. I didn't need a truck. I didn't destroy our world to ship it over here. You're making up stories here. I'm not entertaining those thoughts. Like starch, boom, super cheap, and it's still pretty healthy, potentially even more healthy than fruit. Depends who you ask. All the raw vegans have their beliefs, but most of them are frail, and I haven't seen one live past like 86 yet. Most of them, like, they're not like blowing us away here, like, wow, he really is 135. That's incredible. Not one. So like fruitarians, they die just like us. And I find as long as you're eating some prunes and maybe a little magnesium at night, these things glide through you. Anyway, starch, fruit, doesn't really matter. The only thing you're gonna notice is peeing way more on the watermelon, which tells me you're just getting rid of most of that water. It's not like this huge helpful detox. It's just, you're gonna take up that much water right now? We don't need that. And so it's just peeing it out for hours. Whereas starch is like a more normal life. The real problem with starch is most people can't eat them plain. And so they add salt and fat to it, and then it becomes its whole different conversation. That's a different video we're having now. It's like, oh, grains versus fruit. It's like, wow, when you're salting it, like you get all the bad sides of salt, and then fat with the carbs, your insulin's off, it's a diabetic town. So for me, I add nori while I'm cooking, and that adds a lot of flavor, as well as vegetables. It ends up being, it's still pretty bland, if I'm being honest with you, but it's still pretty good. It's decent. If you were hungry, true hunger, and you sit down to like millet with cabbage and nori, it's like, that's pretty good. It's not as good as the watermelon, but it's a survival food that helps you thrive. I moved. I detected your attention span wandered off, and my analytics can't handle that right now, so we brought you back. When it comes to weight loss, some people need the starch. I've seen it happen. High Carb Hannah, I think, was doing like the fruit-based thing, and it wasn't working until she did starch solution. Some people, I don't know, man. I feel a bit more flubberized, but it could be a transition. I'm not fat. It's just like it's weird seeing any belly fat on me. And don't even listen to what I just said. I'm very lean. It's not like I'm not. It's just, it's strange for me to see 150 pounds on the scale. I haven't weighed that much in a very long time. So it's just strange. On paper, fruit sounds superior, but when you factor in everything, satiation levels, the peeing, all this fruit sugar, the teeth issues, the ripening, some acid fruits can just melt your teeth. I don't know, man. I feel like starch is the happier food for most people, and just eat fruits that are in season. I could change that. I'll be fruitarian next summer, guaranteed. But like, I like the little balance, and I think my skin feels better on starches than it does on fruits. Maybe it's a slower detox. But like, you're not creating, if you're frying things, you're frying these carbs and you're creating the black stuff and your golden brown potatoes, okay, you might have some issues with toxins. I cook everything in water. I just pressure cook potatoes, grain meals. It's all just the lowest toxin amount, and you're getting organic. Do you have some arsenic in the rice? Yeah, probably. What can you do? There's lead in the wakame. Everything has a problem. Cyanide in the apples. Like, okay, whatever, man. Pesticides, yay. Fun world. But eventually, we'll move past it. We'll stop poisoning our food. We're not going to spray lines in the sky. We're not playing checkers here. Like, fuck off. Who's ever doing that? But I think they both have their place. Fruits and cooked starches. And they can be melded together. Not in the same meal, asshole. But like, you know, fruit throughout the day and then starch. Or fruit just for breakfast and then starch the rest of the day. Or just all starch. Maybe the odd fruit snack. And maybe no fruit at all. Just depends on what you're feeling. Listen to the body. You might not stand a chance. So, I don't know. What do you think? Starch or fruit? They're both good. Some better. Doesn't matter. Just thumb it up. Doesn't matter what we learned. You could do that. And it hurts me greatly, and you know that. I do believe you're doing it because you're making a meal of raisins. Sticky and acidic, and goodbye teeth. Yeah. Then you're gonna have to replace them, and then your smile is longer than it should be. And then your teeth are out of focus when you film videos. I want to do it. I want to donate Bitcoin to myself, but that's for you to decide. I'll leave. I'm not balding. It's the shadow of the light. I have hair. Subscribe for more. I don't stand up.